He couldn't spare them much, but he could spare them that at least. When Master Shack-Tai took over training, that practice ceased, or, at least, we had thought it did. She informed me as we left that she would be especially vigilant from now on. Silence reigned after Obi-Wan's pronouncement, and it felt like all the air on the planet was being sucked away. Fists clenched, eyes squeezed shut. Anakin Skywalker lost his fingernail-slim grip on his anger. Bruised. Sparks flew and a console behind them crumpled in on itself like flimsy paper with an ear-rending screech. In the aftermath, Anakin just breathed slowly, chest rising and falling like a metronome. Kaz looked over at his master, seeing the sympathy and knowing the fact that he did not reprimand his former apprentice told an even greater story. Rex and Cody shared a knowing look, but kept their own counsel. Anakin opened his eyes and fixed his hard gaze on Obi-Wan. "You're sure they stopped it?" "Yes." "Good." Another final breath. Then Anakin pulled his Jedi Knight impassivity around him like a cloak. "We should head for the base and get settled in. No point in standing around out here in the dark." "I agree," Obi-Wan replied, ignoring the still smoking console behind them like it wasn't even there. He turned to Kaz. "Why don't you pull up that map again, Padawan, and lead the way?" "Sure," Kaz chirped, shuffling the helmet under his arm and keying up the map. He looked down at it for a moment, then back up at the street, the green glass of the buildings glowing a soft amber in the light of the setting sun. He pointed with his free hand down the street towards the security checkpoints that were now staffed with 2 troopers each. "That way." "I know. That doesn't look right." "You sure, kid?" Cody teased as they set off down the street. Kaz gave him a narrow-eyed look. "Yeah, I'm sure." "Are you sure?" "Sure?" Rex said in a faux serious voice, catching on to the game. Kaz rolled his eyes and flailed his hand out towards the checkpoints. "There's literally a checkpoint right there. Where else could it be?" "Didn't you tell me you didn't pay attention to your flash training modules?" Cody feigned consternation, tips of his fingers tapping on his upper lip to hide his smirk. "Wasn't land nav one of those?" Kaz spluttered indignantly. "Well, yeah, but I can read a map, and besides, I see it anyway." "Kid, you just admitted to skiving off class," Rex laughed, shaking his head. "No, I was physically in class. I didn't skip. Flash training happens inside your brain. Doesn't matter if your butt is in the seat or not." "Captain, please stop tormenting my Padawan," Obi-Wan said, smirking and shaking his head. He patted Kaz consolingly on the shoulder. "I trust your navigational skills, my young apprentice." His grin turned wicked, and he winked at Rex and Cody. "I'm sure we'll get there eventually." "Master!" Kaz's head whipped around, and the insulted glare on his face was ruined by the raccoon rings left from the goggles, and the almost electrified state of his hair making his Padawan braids stick out nearly straight from the side of his head. Obi-Wan lost it, the post-battle high, and the adrenaline rush making it impossible for him to stop his laughter. Anakin, Rex, and Cody soon followed, all of them staggering and leaning against each other as they stumbled towards the base. Kaz valiantly tried to keep a straight face, cheeks turning red with the effort before the giggles burst past his lips uncontrollably. By the time they reached the first checkpoint, Kaz's ribs hurt from laughing. The brothers on duty were shaking their heads at them, but snapped into 2 perfect salutes anyway. Cody, predictably, was the first to recover, returning the salutes. "Anything to report?" The trooper's vocoder gave a static warble that was indicative of stifled laughter, but his voice was level when he answered. "No, sir. Nothing so far." "Good." Cody nodded, and they kept moving. As they passed, their laughter and merriment died down, giving way to the bone-deep exhaustion that came from fighting battle droids all day. Rex's shoulders started to droop, his steps shuffling slightly. Anakin yawned, arms stretching behind his head. Obi-Wan just blinked rapidly, doggedly staring straight ahead and walking with the stiff posture of someone keeping upright by sheer force of will alone, much like his commander. Kaz caught the tail end of Anakin's yawn with one of his own, scrubbing a hand over his face and making the map fizz. "I think we could all use a good night's rest," Obi-Wan said in the quiet as they meandered past the second checkpoint, giving a vague wave to the troopers there, which he'd learned would forestall any attempts to snap to attention. "We'll need to be ready," Cody said quietly. "We forced them back, but they'll probably have regrouped by morning." "Get sleep while you can," Anakin said, eyes scanning the street as the sun set. "It'll be a while before we have another quiet night in this place." "Yeah," Rex's voice was rough, face solemn, bathed in the orange light of the sun. "Do we have a night watch set up at the front?" Obi-Wan asked as they stepped into the main building of the base. Cody pulled his comm from his belt, scrolling quickly through the information and messages he'd been sent while destroying battle droids earlier in the day. "The Senator's battalion is handling it, General. They got some rest while we took the city today." "Perfect." Kaz manipulated the map, zooming in on the main building. Barracks are on the first floor. He closed the map and pointed right down the hallway. "That way." "Food or sleep?" Anakin wondered aloud. "Sleep," came the unanimous chorus. Anakin gave them all a disbelieving look. Rex shrugged. "I've got a ration bar for the night, General." "2, each his own," Anakin replied, a little too quickly, almost like he had somewhere else he needed to be. "I'm getting food."
"See you guys in the morning."
With that, they went their separate ways. Anakin left down the hall towards food, and Obi-Wan, Cody, Kaz, and Rex right towards the barracks that hopefully had empty beds. They walked in silence, the only sounds the swish of Obi-Wan's robes and the creak of plastoid armor. Rex looked down at Kaz, giving him a more detailed once-over than he had been able to on the battlefield. The kid looked tired, shoulders starting to slump, but he was putting up a good front. His armor was dusty and covered in dirt, but no black char from a blaster hit. The armor itself was what drew the bulk of Rex's attention. It was made of the same materials as his own, and the pieces the kid had were shaped similarly, but it was still wholly different. After Cody had told him it was modeled off of Fett's Beskar gam, Rex could see the similarity. He vaguely remembered the Nulls and Alphas wearing something like it for a short time, but his memories were foggy with youth. The kid was missing the codpiece, knee pads, and the shin guards Fett preferred, the latter of which he had supplemented with some very sturdy-looking boots, as well as the helmet and hand covers. "So," Rex started carefully, "we didn't really have time to go over it earlier, but why exactly is there a cadet following you around, General Kenobi?" "I've taken him on as my new Padawan," Obi-Wan replied. He smiled down at Kaz and ruffled the boy's hair. Kaz smiled back, content. "He's force-sensitive?" Rex's eyebrows rose, but he did not seem as shocked by this revelation as everyone else had. He shook his head. "Huh. You don't seem surprised." Obi-Wan gave him a look from the corner of his eye. Rex flashed Cody a hand sign. The older clone nodded, and then Rex answered. Drax answered, "I just thought Cody was the only one, sir." Obi-Wan's smile turned sly. "Ah, of course. That would explain it." Appraisingly, he eyed Cody next. "Was Captain Rex the only one you told?" Cody shook his head. "No, my squad knows. They used to cover for me at first, until I got a handle on it and didn't need their help anymore." "That's why you were so upset with Kaz's squad," Obi-Wan mumbled, understanding dawning. He grimaced in sympathy. "I'm sorry. such a thing was necessary. Who was in your squad, if you don't mind my asking? Not at all, General, Cody said with an easy smile. Wolfie, Bly, Fox, and Pons. Not Rex? Obi-Wan asked, confused. Not officially, Cody replied, grin widening. He knocked his shoulder into Rex's playfully. I might have kidnapped him from his own squad. He followed us around like a stray Tuca after that. It worked out in my favor, so I can't complain, General. Rex laughed and nudged Cody back. Don't think you would want to anyway, Kaz said knowingly. He smirked up at Cody, then shared a look with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's lips twitched under his beard, mischief in his tired eyes. No, indeed. Cody knew they were teasing him, but he was too tired to rise to the bait and merely rolled his eyes. He knew he had a tendency, in Wolf's own words, to be a damn determined, overprotective Shabur, but he just couldn't seem to help it. It was like an ingrained instinct that no amount of beating against could stamp out. Whatever it was, it drew Fett's attention to him like a moth to a flame. Cody still did not know how he felt about that, but war did not leave much time for contemplation. Eventually, they came to the hall where the barracks had been set up, the comfortable quiet that had accompanied them there giving way to a bone-deep weariness. There was a string of rooms that had been gutted, and rows upon rows of bunk beds had been set up in, each one assigned to an individual squad. The first few were for regular troopers, and the final ones at the end for the officers. By unspoken agreement, they all walked into the last one. This room had only single beds, pressed close but still less crowded, and there were only 10 bunks in the whole room. This room had only single beds. Rex made a beeline over to the bunk that he had clearly claimed yesterday, 3 rows from the door, wrestling a ration bar out of his utility pouch as he went. Cody spotted 3 empty beds all in a row towards the back wall and walked over, his general and their new charge shuffling after him. As he put down his things, he noticed Waxer and Helix had already settled in the bunks on either side of his. The 2 brothers were sitting up having a conversation, but stopped when the commander wandered in. Commander, Helix greeted. He gave all 3 of them his sharp-eyed medics once over, before nodding to himself, clearly content with what he saw. I see you kept your promise. Course I did, Helix, Cody answered as he methodically started pulling off the upper half of his armor. He said it, and his helmet, on the floor by the head of his bunk, in the same manner as all the others in the room. Kaz quickly followed suit, doing the same with his own, then collapsing down onto the bunk, not even bothering to try and climb under the blanket. I'm sleeping. Good night. Obi-Wan laughed, setting his armor down just like the other troopers and shaking out the sleeves of his tunics from their squashed rumple. Not just yet, Padawan. Kaz opened one eye and gave Obi-Wan a baleful look. His next word came out in a petulant whine. Why? Sitting down on the end of his bunk, Obi-Wan crossed his legs up in his usual meditation posture. Come sit with me. We need to meditate after the day we just had. Kaz's other eye opened and he hastily rolled out of bed and scrambled to mirror Obi-Wan on his master's bunk, no longer looking disgruntled. Yes, please. Cody and Obi-Wan shared an equally stunned look. Cody had been present for, and borne witness to, several epic fights between Anakin and Obi-Wan regarding meditation before Anakin had been knighted and given the 501. He was not expecting this easy and hasty capitulation Kaz seemed to exhibit, and clearly neither was Obi-Wan. Oh, well. All right then. Obi-Wan mumbled, obviously expecting a fight and not knowing what to do now that there was not one. He shook his head. I'll confess, I wasn't so eager to do this at your age as you seem to be, Padawan. Why not? Kaz looked genuinely confused. It felt nice earlier. Quiet, peaceful. I'd do that all day if I could get away with it. His lips twisted ruefully. I like the quiet the best. This seemed to catch Helix's attention, and he gave Kaz an assessing look, medic instincts kicking in. Loud noises, or loud in a different way?
I don't know,
Kaz said hesitantly. He frowned in thought. Not noises. Well, unless people are arguing. I don't like that. He looked at Helix and shrugged. I don't know. It's quiet in here. There's only a few Vode, and it's been better since I met Master Obi-Wan. He helps. Helix blew out a long, disappointed sigh. Of course. Force Osik. Cody laughed at that, falling back into his own bunk, hands crossed under his head. Don't sound so sad about it, Vad. It's like you want there to be something wrong with him. I can fix it, if there is. Battlefield medicine doesn't work on the Force. It's all right, Helix. I believe I can solve this particular problem, Obi-Wan said reassuringly, voice lightly teasing. He turned to Kaz. I noticed you don't really have any mental shielding at all to speak of, which is likely contributing to your lack of control. I think if we focus on that, it will help you out immensely. Oh! Kaz tried to maintain his happy expression, but he was losing the battle against the perceived shortcoming. Should I be better at that? Not necessarily, no, Obi-Wan said, shaking his head. You haven't had anyone to teach you. Most Force sensitives develop them on their own, as a coping mechanism, like Cody did. However, it's not uncommon for the very young, like yourself, to have none at all. Kaz has brightened. Oh, well, then I don't feel so bad about it. He sat up as straight as he could, hands on his knees, and closed his eyes. I'm ready when you are, Master. Waxer blew out her breath and marveled at Kaz, as at Kaz. I have never seen a cadet bounce so quick from one thing to another. Or be that cheerful, Helix added with a smirk. He looked up at Cody. Were you like that, Commander? Hells no! Rex called from his spot a few rows over, laughing at Cody's indignant spluttering. He growled and hissed like a feral loth cat at anyone who so much as looked at him sideways. I did not, Cody protested, sitting up in his bunk to jab a finger in Rex's general direction. Vad, you gave Bakar a concussion for messing with Bly that one time. Rex's tone and expression were incredulous. That's because Bakar was being a Shabur, and he deserved it. I heard you punched out one of the trainers once for ragging on Rex. Helix made his own contribution to the argument. I heard he threw one off the landing pad. Waxer supplied, leaning in eagerly. Who told you that? Helix scoffed. I didn't throw anyone off the landing pad, Cody interrupted, arms crossed over his chest grumpily. His expression turned sheepish. I might have fought a trainer, though. Might have? Rex was nearly vibrating with glee. See that scar in his face? That's how that happened. Wait, really? Helix's eyes were wide. I thought that story was apocryphal. Cody grinned, shark-like. Nope. Rex rolled off his bunk, scooped up his gear, and darted over, claiming one of the empty beds next to Helix, clearly done with being on the other side of the room. Through it all, Obi-Wan just stared wonderingly at the fact that everyone else seemed to forget he was even there. Whatever barrier had been in place before that had kept Obi-Wan from connecting all the way with his men had seemingly vanished in the LAAT on the way down to Christophsis' surface. He was firmly counted among their number now. Even Rex seemed to have picked up on it. So, you want to hear how it happened? Rex said after placing his bucket and armor carefully on the floor by the head of his new bunk. Hells yes. Waxer's eyes lit up in eagerness. Cody rolled his eyes. Rex. So, the trainers? The original ones? Original ones? Kaz interrupted with a frown. What do you mean? The Kai Voldar, I believe, correct? Obi-Wan said softly, giving up on meditation for the moment. They left after the Battle of Geonosis. The trainers at the facility now are all employed by the Republic. Yes, that's them, General. Rex waved an acknowledging hand in Obi-Wan's direction. Anyway, they've been giving me OSIC for weeks, trying to get me to slip up. I took a bad hit in a sparring session one day and Cody just lost it. He marched right up to Priest, shoved him in the chest, and challenged him to a fight in front of the whole command class. You were what, 6'7"? 6, Cody answered, sounding resigned to the whole affair. Right. Priest just goes with it, pulls a vibro blade from his boot, tosses it to Cody, grabs another from his hip, and the fight was on. It was brutal. About a minute in, Fett comes flying into the room and just stands there watching. I'd never seen Cody fight like that. He held his own against a grown Verd, and he got one good slice on Priest's leg, and that was it. Priest knocked the wind out of him and then swung for Cody's face. Rex paused, swallowing, something about the memories still upsetting him to this day. I'd never seen so much blood before. It was everywhere. Fett snatched up Cody and, I think it was Skirata? Skirata grabbed Priest and dragged him from the room. Then, in the middle of the mats, Cody's blood all over his Beskar. Fett leans over, looks Cody dead in the eye, and names him Coat. Rex is smiling now, the memory turning fond. That was the only time we had ever seen him look proud of one of us. Carking hell! Helix breathed out, jaw slack, stunned eyes locked on Cody. Is that true? Every word, Cody rubbed a hand down the side of his face in irritation. Unfortunately. Unfortunately? Waxer squawked. I'd kill for a name story like that. I had no idea Jango Fett gave you your name, Obi-Wan said, a look of mild disbelief on his face. His look turned wry, or that I had been saying it wrong. I apologize. You haven't, General, Cody assured him. He shrugged, trying to seem nonchalant but not quite making it. His Force presence gave him away, pulling into that spiky shell it made whenever Cody was agitated. I changed it. Coat is what he called me. Cody is mine. Obi-Wan's eyebrows rose. I see. It's still wicked cool. Kaz bobbed up and down on the bunk, grinning. Yeah, kid, it is, Rex agreed with a conspiratorial grin at Kaz. Cody eyed the two with suspicion. Am I going to have to separate you two? No, Commander. Nope. Twin innocent looks were turned on the Commander, but he just rolled his eyes and fell back into his bunk. He rolled over, facing away from Rex and towards Waxer, stuffing an arm under his pillow. Helix, I'm trusting you to make sure nothing explodes while I'm asleep. Of course, Cody, Helix said, moving to lay down in his own bunk. I don't know how to blow anything up, Kaz pointed out logically. So, therefore, I can't actually blow anything up. I don't think it's you he's worried about, Padawan, Obi-Wan said with a smirk. Oh, I can fix that, kid, don't worry, Rex replied, getting comfortable in his own bed. He shuffled around, yawning. But I think it's going to have to wait until morning. Like they were waiting for a cue, the overhead lights winked out, the only source of illumination in the room. Now the emergency lights over the door. The dull yellow gleam cast Kaz's face into strangely shaped shadows and made his amber eyes seem to glow in the darkness. Obi-Wan closed his eyes, trusting Kaz to follow, and reached out to him in the Force. "Just like before, Padawan," he murmured, keeping his voice low and soft. "Imagine that room." "Irlik, Master," Kaz whispered. The room in his mind's eye looked like the one he was in now, and he was drawn to the twinkling lights of all the brothers nearby. Dwarfing them all were Cody and Obi-Wan. And Kaz reached for them both. "I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me." Obi-Wan met his apprentice halfway, reaching back and pulling the child into the gentle stream of the Force with him. Kaz followed him easily, perhaps too easily, and Obi-Wan carefully pulled him back, not letting him fall too deeply into the meditation. Kaz, it appeared, had the opposite problem of most Jedi. He didn't struggle to reach out to the Force. Rather, he reached too far, risking losing himself in its currents. Chest rising and falling slowly with each breath, Obi-Wan led Kaz through the events of the day, looking over them, pulling at the moments of pain and fear, breaking them free and releasing them into the Force. Kaz watched the emotions go easily. Like most of the things he felt, they seemed to be a bright flare then fizzle away into nothing. A potential issue, Obi-Wan noted, but he was unsure if it was caused by the almost permanent undercurrent of anxiety in Kaz's thoughts, or if that was just his natural proclivity. After another moment, Obi-Wan spoke. "Do you remember the wall from before?" "Yes." "Can you see it?" "Not really, Master." "That's all right. I want you to imagine it again, but this time I want you to imagine building it piece by piece. Build it strong and steady." Kaz nodded and began. Obi-Wan watched as the durasteel hull of an escape pod began to weld itself together, the seams of the metal heating up and merging into one solid piece. Obi-Wan stifled a chuckle. He'd seen many different mind forms for shields, but an escape pod was a new one. Slowly, it began to take shape. The single door in the front left opened a crack, the viewport and control panel, the twin parallel benches. There were still places that had gaps, where the metal was not quite conjoined, but what was there was sturdy enough. In the Force, Kaz's presence dimmed, flickered, then settled from the engine flare of brightness it had been into the dull glow of thrusters at idle. His emotions became more muted, less tangible, like the Jedi Obi-Wan was used to interacting with at the temple. Feeling along the bond, Obi-Wan helped his apprentice to shore up the welds he had made, pressing his own strength onto them. "How does that feel, Kaz?" Obi-Wan asked softly, mindful of the sleeping troopers around them. "Much better," Kaz replied, voice just as soft. "I don't think I'll lose this one like I did before." "I think so too." Obi-Wan gave Kaz a nudge, signaling the need to rise from the meditation. Kaz began to pull himself up, struggling for a brief moment before overcoming it and breaking the surface. He opened his eyes and smiled at Obi-Wan. "I did it." "You did," Obi-Wan smiled back. "Good work. Now, just stay in that pod, Kaz chuckled under his breath. "Yes, Master." "Time for sleep, I think," Obi-Wan said as he uncurled his legs from his meditation pose. "Good night, Padawan." "Good night, Master." Kaz slid soundlessly off the bed, stepped over to his own, pulled down the blanket, then fell quietly into it. He was asleep the moment his head hit the pillow. Obi-Wan followed suit, laying down on his back and staring up at the dark ceiling. He had a list of things to do tomorrow, a holocall to make, battle plans to finalize, strategy meetings, troops to check up on, a training plan to devise, logistics that needed reviewed. The list was endless. His thoughts drifted to his interactions with his men, particularly Cody, which had changed ever so slightly in the last 24 hours. After their talk in his quarters the night of his vision, Cody seemed to be embracing his Force talents far more frequently. Whatever it was that had made him cautious, Obi-Wan had helped him overcome it. He had the sneaking suspicion it was both a feeling of not being worthy of the Force and wary that should it be revealed, that Obi-Wan would return him to Kamino. After rescuing Kaz, Cody seemed to have concluded that it was safe to be who he was and that his general would protect him should the need arise. Obi-Wan suspected the rest of his troops felt the same, and with the obvious addition of Kaz and Obi-Wan's endorsement of their culture in the dropship in the mess hall, the final barrier had been breached. He was now here, in the troop barracks, where previously he would not have gone, had not really been welcome, and not one man batted an eye. In fact, he'd been practically herded into the room by Cody and Rex. In one day, he'd gone from skirting close to the edges to being allowed to come inside the circle, and it was certainly humbling. He vowed to not betray that trust for anything. So in that moment, surrounded by his men and his Padawan, he felt content and let that contentment carry him off into the land of dreams. The next morning began bright and early, bringing with it the bad news that their scouts had spotted the Separatist army regrouping and readying for a counterattack that was likely on its way sometime that day. Knowing he did not have much time, Obi-Wan headed to the command center that had been repaired in their building. The FOB was now fully operational thanks to Senator Organa's diligent efforts, and they were once again fighting with the full might of the Grand Army of the Republic behind them. Following the holocall he was about to make, Obi-Wan hoped to assess Kaz's combat abilities, to at least see where he needed to start as far as that was concerned. Normally, that would not be the beginning point of a Padawan's apprenticeship, but they were at war, and those skills were most likely to keep Kaz alive. And as Kaz had admitted to failing combat evaluations on Kamino, Obi-Wan felt it was of particular importance to see just what his new apprentice could do. He'd sent a message to Cody also, requesting that his commander be there for it, knowing he would be able to tell Obi-Wan a little more about what Kaz had actually been taught on Kamino, and be able to better spot the gaps because of it. Obi-Wan, to his own shame, remained largely ignorant of the specifics of trooper training. He aimed to rectify this as soon as he was able. Thankfully, when Obi-Wan stepped into the command center, only Anakin was present. Kaz was off with Cody and Rex, still getting breakfast and watching their morning command routine, ostensibly to learn, but in reality, to let the men see him as Obi-Wan's new student. "Good morning, Anakin." "Morning, Obi-Wan," Anakin replied. He was smiling deviously, like he knew what was about to happen, and was taking great joy in the thought. "Are you here to calm the council?" Obi-Wan heaved a loud sigh, giving Anakin a mildly reproachful look. "Yes, I suppose you are here to witness this? I'm used to being the one in trouble, and for once, I get to sit back and laugh." Anakin's grin was downright gleeful now. "I am taking advantage of this moment, Master." Obi-Wan rolled his eyes and shook his head, but otherwise did not comment. He walked over to the holaudible and started the call, standing back and crossing his arms, resting most of his weight on his right leg, and waited. When the call picked up, the blue glowing forms of Master Yoda, Master Windu, Master Plo, Master Mundi, and Master T appeared, and for the first time in a long while, Obi-Wan was nervous to be standing in front of the council. Infuriatingly, they all seemed to pick up on it, along with Anakin, who quietly snickered in the background. He had a brief moment to be glad that the full council could not make it.
"Master Kenobi, good to see you. It is."
Master Yoda was the first to speak. "News of your campaign on Christophsis, have you?" "Yes, Master Yoda," Obi-Wan replied, relieved to be starting with something benign. He was glad he'd had the forethought to distract Kaz. Even if this meeting went well, it would not be pleasant for the cadet. No one liked to be made to feel like an inconvenience after all. Due to Anakin's heroics, we were able to break the blockade and land on the surface. We took back the city yesterday and have so far been able to hold it. However, intelligence suggests that another attack by the Separatists is imminent. We are currently digging in to prepare as best we can. Do you believe you will succeed? Mace Windu asked, arms crossed and face in his trademark neutral expression. As always, he gave nothing away. I believe so, yes, Obi-Wan answered confidently. We are working on a better plan than just defense. But as things stand now, I don't foresee a problem. I will update you with more information as it comes. This is good news, Obi-Wan, Plo Koon said, deep voice ringing with his satisfaction. The others nodded along in agreement. We look forward to hearing of your future success, Master Mundi stated graciously, the words a light dismissal. When Obi-Wan hesitated to end the call, Master Yoda spoke. Have something else to add, do you? Nervousness clawed its way up Obi-Wan's throat, and he felt his palms begin to sweat. It had been a long time since he defied the Council, and he was unfamiliar with the feeling. He cleared his throat and spoke. Yes, Master Yoda, I do. Anakin's delight at Obi-Wan's suffering radiated from his corner of the room like heat from a campfire. Obi-Wan grit his teeth against it and looked to Master T, hoping desperately for an ally. She smiled at him and came to his rescue. Is this about what you found on Kamino, Obi-Wan? And what did you find there? Plo Koon's voice was lightly curious, but there was an undercurrent of durasteel to it. He, like Obi-Wan, was fiercely protective of the troopers and disliked anything that would threaten them. Obi-Wan dropped his arms to his sides, squared his shoulders, and looked Master Yoda dead in the eye. I have found my next Padawan, Masters.
He is a clone cadet.
Anakin's barely stifled giggles clearly transmitted over the line, but the assembled council members ignored him in favor of goggling in shock at Obi-Wan. None of them, it seemed, had given a moment's thought to the idea of the clones being Force-sensitive. My stay. To their credit, neither had Obi-Wan, but now they, too, could see just how blind they had been about the clones. Mace Windu was the first to recover, eyebrows climbing his forehead.
You found a Force-sensitive clone?
I did, yes. Believe him to be your next Padawan, do you? Master Yoda's question was lightly probing, and he gave Obi-Wan a vaguely reproachful look. It was the same look he had given Qui-Gon many times before. I have already taken him on as my apprentice. I have asked, and he has accepted. Obi-Wan's arms came up to cross over his chest again, his fingers clutching his biceps roughly. I have already begun training him in the ways of the Force. I'm sorry. You have done what? Master Mundi's voice and expression were flabbergasted. Marvelous, Plo Koon breathed out, his modulated voice easily conveying his approval, causing Master Windu to give him a side-eyed glare. And why did you not consult this council before making such a decision, Master Kenobi? Mace's words were whip-sharp, like the glare he leveled at Obi-Wan. That, too, had been leveled at Qui-Gon many a time. Behind the holotable, Obi-Wan saw Anakin lose control of his laughter, leaning against the wall, eyes squeezed shut, fists stuffed in his mouth, and turning an alarming shade of red. Obi-Wan valiantly ignored him. He was sure, had his former master been here, he would have been in a similar state to Anakin. The amount of irony contained in this moment was cosmic. "I didn't think there was a need to, Master Windu." Obi-Wan shot back snappily, unwilling to back down and let Kaz be taken from him. He is only 6 standard, not a fully grown adult trooper, and within the age limit for admittance into the temple. I did not think, in such a case, that consultation was required. "And beyond that," Master T interrupted, her voice calm and peaceful, yet holding a core of iron. "The clones are our responsibility. Should any one of them show talent with the Force, I believe we are duty-bound to teach them, if they wish it. Their very existence is because of a former council member." That seemed to take the wind out of everyone's angry sails and garner an approving nod from Master Kun. Obi-Wan blew out a breath, the tension leaving his shoulders and making him feel jittery, like he'd had too much calf. Master Yoda let out an audible sigh, eyes closing briefly and ears tipping gently downward. In that moment, the eldest Jedi in the temple looked his age, the cares and concerns of the war weighing him down. "Agree with this, I do, but like it, I do not. Our responsibility. The clones are. Do what we can for them. We must. Leave them to wander alone in the darkness. We must not." "I do not like it," Master Mundi began stubbornly, softening towards the end, "but I see the logic in it." Master Windu nodded, looking like he'd swallowed a whole bag of sour candy. "So be it. So be it. He is your Padawan, Master Kenobi. Bring him before us you must, yes, The sly glint in Yoda's eyes gave Obi-Wan pause. "I second that motion," Plo Koon said, hands twitching eagerly. "I would love to meet this cadet. Tell me, Obi-Wan, what is his name?" Obi-Wan smiled, relaxing. He sent a quick message to Cody on his wrist comm, then focused back onto Plo. "His name is Kaz, Master Plo." "He's very cute," Shock said delightedly, almost conspiratorially. "I'm going to wager a guess that you knew about this?" Mace just seemed completely resigned to the whole affair, having given up on fighting it entirely. As the war had progressed, he'd learned better than to try to fight Skywalker or Kenobi when they dug their heels in. "I helped Obi-Wan steal him from under the Kaminoans' noses," Shock T confirmed smugly, clearly proud of herself. "Master Tai, I am astonished," Master Mundi replied. He shook his head ruefully. "Or perhaps I am not." Interrupting the conversation, the door to the command center hissed open, and Commander Cody, Kaz, and Captain Rex stepped through. They must have been on the tail end of their rounds, and already on the way to the command center to have arrived so quickly, Obi-Wan noted. The captain made a beeline for the corner that Anakin had claimed, while Cody and Kaz came to stand next to Obi-Wan. Apprehension wafted off Kaz like haze on a hot summer day, but he was confident outwardly. "Ah, hello there, young one." Predictably, Plo was the first to speak. "And Commander Cody." "Hello," Kaz chirped back, some of his nervousness leaving in the face of Master Kun's obvious delight. "Generals," Cody greeted with an acknowledging nod, expression wry at being almost ignored in favor of the cadet. Plo looked over at Shock, positively radiating happiness. "You were right, Shock. He is adorable." This sent both Anakin and Rex into yet another bout of sniggers. Cody and Obi-Wan stoutly ignored them both. Kaz just looked vaguely confused. Young he is, very young," Yoda said slowly, clawed hands twisting on the top of his Geimer stick. "Tell me, how feel you, Padawan?" "I feel fine, General Yoda, sir," Kaz answered hesitantly, nerves replaced by his utter confusion. This was clearly not what he had been expecting, when he'd walked into the room. He turned to look up at Obi-Wan. General, what am I? Relax, Padawan. Obi-Wan placed a comforting hand on Kaz's armored shoulder. They simply wish to speak with you. There are no wrong answers here. Kaz grinned, relaxing. He nodded and turned to look up at the blue forms of the council, eyes drawn to the familiar hologram of Master T. General T. Ooh, it's good to see you again. I hope Nalasi wasn't too mad at you for helping us. I assure you, I was quite all right after your departure. She answered with a smile. Thank you for asking, Padawan. Fear I do not sense, Yoda said after a small pause. His gaze turned, assessing as he stared at Kaz. Worried, are you? Yes, Master, a little bit, Kaz replied candidly. I don't really know what's going on or what I'm supposed to do yet. And also, Cody said, the Seppies are about to attack again. I'm not afraid of the droids, but I'm worried about our squad. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. An admirable thought. This surprisingly came from Master Mundi, but do not center on your anxieties, Padawan. Trust in the Force. Kaz nodded, not quite understanding, but doggedly determined anyway. Okay, I'll try, General Mundi. Is that all you were worried about, Padawan? Mace queried, but not unkindly. Well. Kaz closed his eyes, took in a slow breath, and let it out, just as slow, reaching carefully for the Force as he did so. When his eyes opened, he locked them with Windu's own. No, it's not. I don't want to fail. I don't want to go back there. Your worries will consume you if you are not careful. Master Kun said gently, You will not be returned to Kamino. Be at peace. Take heart, young one. Whether you succeed or fail depends entirely upon you and how you define that success or failure. Only you can do this. Kaz seemed to rally at that, shoulders straightening and head held high. I know I wasn't made for this, Master Kun, but I'll do my best. Be mindful of your anxieties. They can lead you to fear. Shakti advised, and fear will lead to anger. Anger will lead to hate, and hate will lead to suffering. The dark side is perhaps the only way in which you can say you failed. Jedi do not call upon the dark. Is that the... Kaz paused, face scrunching up as he tried to recall the word. What the Darth Jedi use? Yes, Padawan, Obi answered, the only one of the Jedi who understood the Mando word. In basic, the word you are looking for is Sith. The Sith lead the Separatist army, right? Kaz asked hesitantly. Cody and Rex were telling me about it this morning. Led by Count Dooku, the Separatists are. Yoda answered, ears drooping at the mention of his fallen former Padawan. A Jedi Master, Dooku once was. Now, no longer. And if I'm not careful, that will be me, Kaz inferred. He crossed his arms over his chest and gave Obi-Wan a determined look. You have to tell me how to avoid it, Master. Of course I will, Kaz. Obi-Wan promised without hesitation. Kaz nodded, accepting this with the easy confidence of a child. Too old he is, yet too old he is not. Yoda said to Obi-Wan, looking the other master dead in the eye. Careful you must be with his training, Obi-Wan. Difficult. This road will be. Very difficult, yes. While I sense he has great potential, I agree. Master Windu crossed his arms, expression solemn. If you aren't careful, this could backfire. You have the reluctant permission of this council to train him, Obi-Wan. Do so wisely. Of course, Masters, Obi-Wan said, bowing low. I look forward to the great things he will accomplish, Master Plo said. His actions will determine much for the future of his brothers. He gave Kaz as kindly a look as was possible with his mask and goggles. May the Force be with you always, young Kaz.
And also with you, General Kun,
Kaz replied, mimicking Obi-Wan's bow perfectly. We look forward to hearing of your victories on Christophsis, Master Kenobi. Master Mundi said evenly, May the Force be with you. And with you, counselors. With that, the call was disconnected, and the room was plunged into a brief silence. Obi-Wan blew out a long breath, scrubbing a hand over his face and moving away from the holotable to face Cody. He felt like the weight of the galaxy had abruptly been lifted from his shoulders, and he could sense through the Force that Cody felt the same. His commander had obviously been as worried about this meeting as Obi-Wan. He watched idly as Anakin and Rex walked over to join them. Well, that went better than I expected, Obi-Wan said with a relieved smile. I've definitely seen worse, Rex agreed with a grin. All the times Anakin had been in hot water with the council flashing behind his eyes. Good job, kid. I'm just glad I wasn't the one in trouble for once, Anakin said, giving Obi-Wan a reluctantly impressed look. I still can't believe you did that, Master. Well, to be fair, I've done it before. How'd you think you came to be my apprentice anyway, Anakin? Obi-Wan said with an eye roll and a smile. Anakin laughed. Yeah, guess I forgot about that. Seems like forever ago. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Obi-Wan agreed mildly. So did I pass. Kaz was shifting lightly from foot to foot, fingers brushing idly over the edges of his utility belt. His amber eyes were large and hopeful, staring up at Obi-Wan. You did, Obi, answered simply, checking his initial impulse to explain how it was not a test at all. In purpose, perhaps not, but in practice, perhaps, yes. Kaz's whole face lit up in a shy smile, and he stopped fidgeting. Really? Wizard! Yeah, kid. Cody placed his hand on Kaz's shoulder and gave him a light shake. You did good. Well then, Obi-Wan clapped his hands together, looking at everyone gathered in the room with him. How does a little bit of sparring sound? Sparring? Anakin asked as he followed Obi-Wan out of the room. Yes, I need to get a sense of just what exactly Kaz can do. Obi-Wan replied as they all walked out of the room and into the hallway. You can come if you'd like, Anakin. Cody and I can help with that, General. Rex volunteered quickly. We're more familiar with what is being taught to the troops, sir. Don't worry about it, Rex. I was already in on it. Cody gave Rex's shoulder a quick pat as the group of them stepped out into the bright sun of the morning. But you're welcome to come too. Across from the weapons depot, there was an empty bit of space being used by some of the troops when they had time for practice and training. It was mostly empty, save for a handful of men doing cool-down exercises. They began the easy walk over there, talking companionably amongst themselves, Cody and Rex idly catching up on everything that had happened since the last time they had worked together. The small group that was already there turned out to be comprised of Sergeant Slick and his men, and their conversation went quiet as the generals approached. Slick called the men to attention when the group was 6 paces from them and snapped a regulation, perfect salute, at the regulation, perfect distance. Obi-Wan noticed something odd in the other clone's eyes, but didn't dwell on it. Instead, he returned the salute with the snappiest one he could muster. Good morning, Sergeant. Good morning, General Kenobi, General Skywalker. He dropped his salute after Obi-Wan did, another textbook adherence to protocol. His tone and manner were perfectly cordial, but still something niggled at Obi-Wan. Not to worry, sirs, we were just leaving. No need to rush on our account, Obi-Wan demurred. Take your time, gentlemen. You won't disturb us. Of course, sir, Slick said easily, making no moves to resume his earlier activities. Obi-Wan held in a sigh, knowing this was a battle he would not win. Carry on. With that, he moved past Slick and his men, the rest of his entourage following behind. As they settled into some empty space a few paces away from Slick, Obi-Wan looked back and noticed the hard look the sergeant was giving Kaz. Obi-Wan made eye contact with the other man, and that dark look was shuttered away. Slick gave out hand signals to his squad, and they departed. Obi-Wan watched them go and shook his head, but held his tongue. It seemed there was still work to be done with the troopers after all, he mused silently. Ahead of him, Cody was already walking Kaz through some gentle warm-up movements. The cadet was moving easily through them, working off of well-ingrained muscle memory, moving into the next movement without prompting from Cody. So you did pay attention to something, Cody teased him, copying the movements. I was good at this, Kaz answered, raising his arms above his head, bending slightly into a lunge and leaning into the stretch. He came down out of it slowly, in perfect sync with Cody. It drove Commander Colt crazy. I could fight one-on-one and beat my whole squad, but during the tests, I would just lose it in blackout. You had Commander Colt giving you extra training? Rex said, smirking and shaking his head. I don't know whether to congratulate you or offer my condolences. Was he a tough instructor? Anakin asked as he stepped a few paces away and pulled his lightsaber from his belt, intent on doing some warm-ups of his own.
He's an ARC trooper, General, so that's pretty much a given.
Rex replied with a laugh. He stepped a few paces away to stand by Obi-Wan, both of them content to watch for the moment. Kick my ass across the mess more times than I can count. Cody wrapped up his warm-up movements with Kaz and stood across from him, taking up an easy-ready stance. So what I'm hearing is that you're well-trained and that you should be able to keep up. Right, kid? Kaz dropped into his own opening pose, right foot forward, knees slightly bent, weight balanced on the balls of his feet, arms up and hands in loose fists, a direct mirror of Cody's own.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's a brave stance, kid, Rex said, a thread of appreciation in his voice. ARC trooper ready. Colt teach you that? Yep, Kaz chirped. Let's see if you can back it up, Cody said challengingly. Without warning, he struck, right hand snapping out viper quick. Kaz brought his left forearm up just as fast in the solid block, the sound of plastoid plates hitting together loud in the relative quiet of the weapons depot. Not waiting for a follow-up hit, Kaz ducked, lunging forward and throwing his own punch towards Cody's midsection. Cody deflected the hit, slipping easily into the opening that Kaz had given him and going for another strong punch. Kaz ducked again, using the palms of his hands to bounce Cody's arm away, and then made a grab for his elbow, right foot sweeping towards the commander's knees. Knee flashing up, Cody blocked the move with his shin and yanked on the arm Kaz had grabbed, pulling the cadet off balance and dropping him unceremoniously into the dirt. Instead of giving up, Kaz rolled, wrapping a hand around the back of Cody's unprotected leg and pulled, dropping the startled commander into the dirt with him. Kaz's eyes went wide the moment he realized he had miscalculated. Cody was suddenly over him, one knee on his chest plate and the other in the dirt, both hands pinning Kaz's biceps to the ground. Flailing mightily, Kaz tried to buck him off with all his strength, but Cody didn't budge. Narrowing his eyes, Kaz reached for the Force and pushed. Whoa! Cody flew backwards, landing on his back in a surprised sprawl before he glared at the cadet, did a lightning-fast kip-up, and pitched a haymaker at a scrambling Kaz. That was a dirty trick, kid. You're heavier than me. Kaz grunted out, arms flashing and stumbling backwards as he barely blocked the hail of rapid-fire punches from Cody. What else was I supposed to do? This! Cody swept out, using his longer legs to knock Kaz right off of his, snapped the cadet up midair, twisted the boy's arm behind his back and yanked him up close, pressing them together back to chest. Hey! Kaz reached for the Force to try and buck Cody off again, but the older clone did the same, stopping the attempt and pinning Kaz to him. Oh, come on! Turnabout is fair play, kid. Cody grinned at him viciously. Give up? Kaz wiggled, spluttered, tried to stomp on Cody's toes and the bridges of his feet, and cursed before slumping in the commander's Beskar grip. Ugh, yes. I give. Cody let him go and Kaz stumbled away, giving him a dirty look. Cody just laughed at him and clapped Kaz on his shoulders. Not bad, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Colt taught you well. Very impressive, Padawan, Obi-Wan agreed. Hand-to-hand skills like that were far above the average for a Jedi youngling of Kaz's age, even for an actual human Padawan of 12. The benefits of Mandalorian combat training, he supposed. How in the 9 Corellian hells did you fail your combat tests? This bewildered question came from Anakin, who was standing there staring at them, unlit lightsaber in his metal hand. That's better than some adults I've seen fight. Kaz is highly attuned to the living force, Obi-Wan answered. So much so that he gets dragged into its currents and can't get himself back out. He turned to his apprentice. I assume during your evaluations, you reached for the Force to steady your nerves and got more than you bargained for? Yeah, that's pretty much what happened, Kaz answered while rotating the arm that Cody had pinned, working out the tension in the muscle. And during evils, there would be more people, more trainers there. I could sense them all their emotions, everything. It was kinda awful. When I was practicing, it was just me and Commander Colt. Anakin's eyes were filled with sudden sympathy. I know exactly what you mean. It used to happen to me, too, when I was really young. Oh, really? That's no fun. Kaz shared a commiserating look with Anakin, then turned to Obi-Wan, a question in his eyes. But, Master Obi-Wan, is there a difference between the living force and the regular force?
Are there 2 forces?
Not exactly, Padawan, Obi-Wan replied, slipping easily into his lecturer's voice and stance. The force consists of 2 parts, the living force and the unifying force, and both feed into each other, creating the cosmic force as a whole. Some Jedi, like myself, are more talented in the unifying force, which lends itself to visions, premonitions, and feelings of the future. Others, like you, are more grounded in the living force, giving them a stronger connection to all life forms, from sentience to plants. My master, Qui-Gon was one such Jedi. Oh, wow, Kaz mumbled, overwhelmed with information. So when you say, I have a bad feeling about this, Cody visibly steeled himself against the response he knew he was going to get. Why don't you listen to it? We always press forward anyway, General. Sometimes, such things are a self-fulfilling prophecy, Commander, Obi-Wan explained patiently. My master always used to tell me to be mindful of the living force, my young Padawan. Don't center on your anxieties. Keep your concentration here and now, where it belongs. Obi-Wan shook his head. That advice used to frustrate me to no end, but I have a feeling that it will do you well, Kaz. You told me that all the time, Anakin groaned out. He crossed his arms over his chest and leveled an accusing look at Obi-Wan. It got on my nerves, too, Obi-Wan. Yes. Well, that didn't stop it from being true, now did it? Kaz just shrugged and gave Obi-Wan an earnest look. I will try to remember it, Master. Good. They were quiet as the conversation stalled. Cody seemed like he wanted to ask a question, but stopped, giving Anakin a wary look. He clearly did not want to tell the other general anything about his own troubles with the Force. Expression clearing. Cody turned his attention to Obi-Wan. Well, sir, he's ahead for his age in hand-to-hand combat. His blaster skills could use some work. He looked over at Kaz. Did they start you on melee weapons training? Yeah, Kaz answered, his grin suddenly smug. I beat a squad 2 years ahead of me in a one-on-one Beskad tournament. Beskad? Anakin clipped his lightsaber to his belt and walked closer, giving up on training for the moment. It's a Mandalorian sword, Obi-Wan replied, eyeing Kaz appraisingly, a plan forming in his mind. Coming to a decision, he looked at Anakin. Do you mind if we borrow your lightsaber? No? Anakin said hesitantly, handing over his saber to Obi-Wan. Thank you, Anakin. Obi-Wan took the saber, fiddling with it briefly to turn down the intensity of the beam, and then walked over to Kaz. He held the saber hilt out to his Padawan. Would you like to try this? Kaz's eyes went round, and his jaw dropped, looking from the saber to Obi-Wan's face, then back again. Are you serious? Yes. He reached out and snatched the saber from Obi-Wan's lax grip and trotted away a few paces. Reverently, he lifted the hilt and stared at it in his hands. Slowly, his thumb pressed the button, and Anakin's lightsaber hummed to life. Whoa! Kaz swung it gently back and forth, watching avidly as the blue blade trailed through the air and smiling at the distinctive noises it made. After a moment, his expression turned thoughtful, and he looked down at the hilt in his hands, then consideringly along the blade of the saber. Carefully, he reached out with the Force, sensing the crystal, and then winced lightly. I don't think it likes me, Kaz said after a moment, giving Anakin a lost look. Anakin just laughed. That's because the crystal inside is attuned to me, just like every other Jedi and their lightsaber. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine for a practice spar. If you say so. Kaz agreed warily. He nodded to Obi-Wan. Ready when you are, Master. Well then, Obi-Wan replied, moving to stand in front of Kaz. He bowed, and Kaz mirrored it, lit blade held carefully away from his body. Obi-Wan ignited his own weapon. Let's see how well Mandalorian blade forms translate into lightsaber combat, shall we? Oh, this ought to be good. Rex chuckled, stepping back further with Cody and Anakin. The three of them shared a look, but Cody was the one who spoke. I am pretty curious how this'll go. I never even knew this was a thing, Anakin huffed, shaking his head. But his eyes were gleaming. Now that I know, though, I kinda want to learn it. Better see if it's any good with a lightsaber first, sir, Rex cautioned amicably. True. Obi-Wan dropped into his favored Soresu-ready stance and nodded to Kaz. Whenever you are ready, Padawan. Kaz nodded, feet shifting into the same stance as before, but his saber was held in a double-handed grip, the hilt level with his head and blade perpendicular to the ground as he watched his opponent. He whirled the saber around in his hand briefly, bounced on the balls of his feet, then struck out with a powerful mid-level swipe at Obi-Wan, who deflected it easily. The battle was on. "Oh, look at that!" Rex crowed, mouth in a wide grin and eyes light. "Huh," Cody muttered, arms crossing over his chest, eyes on the fight. Kaz struck out a few more times, each attack easily rebuffed by Obi-Wan's well-honed defense. Disengaging, Kaz took a moment to appraise his master, both combatants circling each other slowly. Suddenly, Kaz came to a decision, darting in close and getting inside the reach of Obi-Wan's saber. Lashing out with a fist, Kaz hit Obi-Wan in the abdomen with a glancing blow, and followed it up with a swift strike with his saber that Obi-Wan fumbled to block. Pressing his advantage, Kaz tried to stay inside Obi-Wan's guard and swing again. But the Jedi was a master for a reason, and with an expert flick of his blade, he forced Kaz out and away, and back to where Obi-Wan wanted him to be. He shook his head at Kaz, laughing. That was unexpected. "Well done, Padawan." Kaz just smiled, and the fight began anew. Now that Obi-Wan knew Kaz was trying to get in close, he was able to keep the cadet away, forcing him to fight at the distance Obi-Wan preferred. Kaz didn't quite have the skill to compensate for it, and his attacks were left frustrated against Obi-Wan's staunch rebuffs. Trading a few more blows, Kaz was able to suddenly breach Obi-Wan's defense, only for Anakin's saber to be spun from his grip to land harmlessly in the dirt, deactivating. "Aw, man," Kaz whined, crossing his arms in a pout and staring at the tip of Obi-Wan's lightsaber under his chin. He sighed. "I give up, Master. You win." "Don't sweat it, Kaz," Anakin called consolingly, a rueful smile on his face. He summoned his lightsaber back to him with the Force.
"I still can't beat him either."
"You did well, Kaz," Obi-Wan said, "and you adapted to the new weapon as best you were able. Beskad forms aren't meant for weightless blades. I imagine some things didn't quite translate." "No, I felt like I was gonna fall over every time I swung." Kaz rubbed a hand on the back of his neck sheepishly. "I was weird but fun." "I could see the potential, though," Cody said, weighing in. The look on his face was thoughtful and solemn. He turned to Obi-Wan. "The way he got under your guard like that, sir, that's how Mandalorians fight Jedi. The Qui-Gon taught it to some of us, in case we might need it." He frowned, his expression going dark. "He genuinely surprised you."
"I don't like that kind of vulnerability, General."
In his defense, Commander, most people are trying to get away from a lightsaber, not run straight for it, Anakin protested, rising to Obi-Wan's defense. "Exactly his point, Anakin." Obi-Wan ran a hand through his hair and clipped his lightsaber to his belt. "Jango Fett did the same to me when we fought on Kamino. It worked. Cody's right. It's something I need to work on in case someone other than a Mandalorian gets the bright idea to try it." "I like that plan, General," Cody said with an affirming nod. Obi-Wan's eyes took on a scheming light.
"I suppose that means you're volunteering to teach me, Commander?"
Cody spluttered, clearly not expecting that response. His hands came up and waved through the air. I don't think that I'd be the best choice, General. I'm sure there's someone else who—" "Nonsense," Obi-Wan immediately objected. "You clearly know what you're doing, Cody." "Cody, I would be honored if you would instruct me in the ways of Beskad combat." Cody looked positively poleaxed. He straightened, getting a hold of his shock, coming to attention.
"Yes, sir?"
Obi-Wan smiled. "Perfect." He turned to Anakin, leaving Cody to stew in his wake. "Now that that's settled, care for a quick spar, my old Padawan?" "Of course, Master." Anakin readily agreed. He smiled over at Kaz. "Pay attention, kid, and you might learn something." Lightsabers ignited. Whip bows exchanged. They were off. Kaz settled back with Cody and Rex to watch his first ever lightsaber duel. Blue blade met blue blade as they hummed and clashed through the air, their wielders sharing the same satisfied grin. Incrementally, their movements picked up speed, and Kaz noticed they were doing the same patterns of moves over and over, increasing the speed with every repetition. Suddenly, Anakin faltered, and Obi-Wan's saber snapped out, completing the swing and disarming his former Padawan. Anakin shook his head with a laugh. Under his amusement was the smallest hint of irritation, but the younger Jedi did not let it show in his expression as he bent down to pick his lightsaber up from the dirt. He clipped it to his belt and gave Obi-Wan an exasperated look. "One day I'll beat you at that, Obi-Wan." "Perhaps, Anakin, perhaps," Obi-Wan replied, securing his own saber to his belt. He opened his mouth to say something else, only to snap it shut when all of their comlinks started flashing. "That can't be good," Anakin muttered. He reached over and answered his first. "This is General Skywalker." "General, this is Sergeant Boyle, 212th. We've got eyes on an army of droids heading our way, sir. You and General Kenobi are needed at the front." "Copy that, Sergeant," Anakin replied, hurrying towards the landing pad, the others following in his wake. "Myself, General Kenobi, Captain Rex, and Commander Cody will be there shortly." "Affirmative, sir." "Boyle out." "So much for training," Anakin muttered as they sprinted towards an LAAT that was spinning up for takeoff. "War waits for no man," Obi-Wan said darkly, darting into the gunship. He stood, hand on the hold above his head, other arm around Kaz, and gazed out into the shimmering green of Christophsis. Their break was going to be short-lived, it seemed. He could sense in the Force that things were about to pick up and stay that way for quite some time. Resigned, Obi-Wan reached for the Force and rose to meet the challenge. They would survive this, and then they would go on to do it again and again and again. The pattern of the war was a ragged staccato that marched ever on,